Hello, Skip. Welcome to WG Content's Unscripted. It's so nice to have you.
Great to see you, Kirsten. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to be here today.
Yes, and you have gone through all kinds of really cool, fun, exciting changes the last few months. For those that don't know, although I believe most people do, Skip Hidlay is the former CMO of OSU Wexner. Really big background in publishing and all sorts of, really cool things that I think maybe we'll talk a little bit about. But now you've launched Clair Communications, a consulting practice. So bringing your expertise to healthcare leaders, and I understand maybe even outside of healthcare. So talk to us a little bit about the name Clair Communications. I know a little bit
Yes,
about it, but I think people would love to hear more about
yeah,
it.
yeah. So I get that question. So I named it after my grandfather, who was
Okay.
W. Clair Hidlay, and he was a successful entrepreneur and business leader in the small town of Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, where I grew up in the Northeast. And as I was thinking about starting my own practice, and I've always wanted to do this, I've had an
Mhm.
entrepreneurial streak. All of the roles that I've held from the news industry into healthcare marketing and communications, I've sort of leveraged an entrepreneurial spirit, created new products, tried to
Mhm.
innovate in the space of marketing, communications, and digital strategy. So I felt like I wanted to give it a name that was a little bit different than
Yeah.
just my initials. And
Yeah.
it kind of just came to me one morning when I was running, and I thought, well, that would be cool. And then I
Yeah.
quickly jumped on the web and I found that wclear.com was available. So I bought it instantly. So that's how it started.
That's smart. That's always the best place to start is like, okay, the more before I go down this path of like developing it, is the URL
Yeah.
available? Is the trademark available? So that was
Yeah.
smart. All right, Skip. Well, you know what you're getting into. You've agreed to a fun, unscripted conversation. So we're going to just dive right in. Are you ready?
I love it. I love it. I'm
Let's-
excited.
we're going to get to know you a little bit better. Okay. So if you could swap jobs with anyone for a day, who would it be?
That's a great question. It would be Wynton Marsalis, who was the leader of the New York Jazz Orchestra. I've been a Wynton Marsalis fan for a long time. I'm a big music buff, and that would just be really cool if I could play trumpet
Yeah.
for a day, if I could live in his shoes as he's orchestrating, sort of keeping jazz alive in the space of New
Yeah.
York and on a national and international stage. I'd just be really curious what a
Yeah.
day in his life is like. That would be a lot of fun.
Do you play an instrument? So you're passionate around music. What's your background there and what led you to that?
No, I've tried a couple times, but I never had the discipline. I was too busy, doing what I do,
Yeah.
storytelling, marketing, editing, writing, just you name it. Never
Yeah.
quite had the time to devote to practice all day
Yeah.
long. I did play in a garage band. I played bass guitar in a garage band in junior high, but I wasn't very good.
Well, I
Uh,
think that's worth something. I mean, that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I've been a complete music buff
Yeah.
since my preteen years. And when Ken Burns came out years ago with the big PBS special on jazz, and I'd always been into the blues and into
Yeah.
rock, but I didn't know a lot about jazz. So I sort of made that my mission to educate
Hmm.
myself on jazz. And Wynton Marsalis was a very prominent voice in that Ken Burns special. And I
Hmm.
went out and bought several of his CDs along with a lot of other jazz. And I've sort of become a bit of a jazz aficionado along with my love of blues
I love it.
and rock.
Okay. So where can you think of a time or an experience that stands out that was like your favorite experience listening to the blues or jazz or seeing it live? Like, have you had any sort of in-person like concert or venue that you've been to?
Well, oh yeah, I go to music regularly, though
Yeah.
I'm way more choosy now because I want to
Yeah.
protect my protect my hearing as I get a
Right.
little older. Well, I just actually saw a fantastic weekend of blues in Chicago where I
Okay.
live because every year the first weekend in June is the Chicago Blues Festival, which is
Oh,
the world's
yeah.
largest free blues music festival. And it's a very interesting brand collaboration. It's evolved into an interesting brand
Okay.
collaboration between Mississippi and the Mississippi
Yeah.
Visit Mississippi Tourism
Hmm.
Bureau and the city of Chicago, because as any blues aficionado knows, the blues was truly born in the Mississippi Delta and then
Okay.
migrated up in the Great Migration to Chicago and was electrified in Chicago.
Okay.
So I just love it because it's such a part of the city. And as Mayor Brandon Johnson said when he was on stage reading a proclamation, he said that the Chicago Blues Festival and blues represent the heart and soul of Chicago, and I really think that's true. So this weekend I got to see Taj Mahal. I got to see a great new blues singer by the name of Sue Foley.
Okay.
She's not new; she's been around a long time, but I had never seen her. She was fantastic. And then the to me the favorite part of the weekend was Friday night when two very legendary blues musicians who literally studied from the old masters on the south side of Chicago, Elvin Bishop, who was a founding member of the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, and Charlie Musselwhite, who's been had his own band and played with everybody forever.
Mhm.
He's probably the world's greatest living harmonica player. The two of them had a set together with just a
Oh, fun.
third
Was it
stand-in
kind of
musician. So
unexpected? So it was like not a planned thing and
no, it was planned.
oh,
It was
okay.
on the thing. It was on the, on the agenda. But to put the two of them together without a big band in a very
Mm-hmm.
sort of felt like a very intimate setting, and they
Mm-hmm.
told stories about going to these bars on the south side of Chicago and seeing the legends
That's
like
so
Sonny Boy
cool.
Williamson and
Yeah.
Otis Rush, and Howlin' Wolf, and it was just a
I'll have to
magical,
check that out. Is it
magical
always
night.
like the first weekend in June in
Always the
Chicago?
first weekend
Okay.
in June. And the,
Yeah.
the the background there, the other funny little tidbit, Kirsten, I posted something on this on LinkedIn earlier. I guess I did it last week. The Blues Festival was I started for the AP in June of 1986. That was my first
Okay.
start with in what
Yeah.
became a 10-year career for the Associated Press. I started in Chicago. And my first week was the first week in June. And my first
Well,
assignment and my first national byline was to write a preview of the
yeah.
Blues Festival. And then I
Yeah.
went that Friday night and I got to see Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry. And in the
Yeah.
middle of Chuck Berry's set, he invited out Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones to jam with him. So that's the kind of stuff you never
Yeah.
you never know what you're going to see.
Yeah. And at that time in your life, you wish you could like document things like we do today, right? We're just constantly getting our phones out, like recording everything. And to
And
think that you had that
I
sort of
have
moment, I mean,
I
that's
have no
neat.
pictures from it.
No, I
Zero.
mean, how could
Nothing at
you? We just
all.
didn't have that in our
Right.
pocket. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, if you could invite anyone to dinner, alive or not, famous or not, who would come? I guess that'd have to be
Well,
different than the
so
last question we just answered, but maybe similar.
Well, it is because what I really am intrigued by the creative process. So I'm
Hmm.
at heart a writer and a storyteller and an editor, and I love the creative process. The part I loved the most when I was in the news business was the art and the act of
Yeah.
putting out a daily product, and then it became a
Hmm.
product that you updated, every hour,
Yeah.
sometimes every 15 or 20 minutes, as the
Hmm.
web became part of our digital publishing
Hmm.
portfolio. But I've always been thrilled and curious about the creative process, which is, I think, why I like the blues so much. So the blues grew in Mississippi, migrated to Chicago, but then off of the blues, all these other things branched out. You had rock music, which took many forms, and then you
Hmm.
had jazz. So I
Hmm.
was thinking about this, and I think that a great dinner conversation would actually be with Wynton Marsalis, with Eric Clapton, who is one of the great British,
Hmm.
rock stars that everybody knows of, but he was a real student of the blues. And
Hmm.
Marsalis and Clapton collaborated years ago on an album of jazz music with Clapton
Okay.
playing guitar that was his jazz
Yeah.
and blues. And then I'd like to have Howlin' Wolf there. If you could bring somebody back.
Yeah.
Howlin' Wolf was one of the legends of the South Side of Chicago. His real
Yeah.
name is Chester Burnett. And Clapton actually, and a number of the big British stars, Steve Winwood and Charlie
Yeah.
Watts, recorded an album with Howlin' Wolf in London called the London Howlin' Wolf Sessions. And I
Hmm.
bought that. I still have a copy of it today. And so it would be the three of them. And then I think what would also be interesting would be to pull in Bonnie Raitt as sort of the great
Yeah.
stateswoman of
Yeah.
women in blue today in many
Yeah.
ways. I just think that would be a fascinating conversation
Yeah.
because you'd have one of
Like
the
all the different kind of genres and backgrounds coming
yeah,
together to
yeah,
really brains. Yeah. I mean, you'd almost have to bring them to a certain place and everyone would have to have their, instruments or something like some sort of
right,
collaboration would be pretty cool. Well, that
yep,
was a
that would be
very,
so much fun.
yeah, I think that would be a good dinner party. That would be
That's
really
what I
good.
was thinking.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't like to just have dinner with
You're
one
like
person.
one
A dinner
guest.
party
Come
is no
on. We need
fun,
to have
right?
a
You
whole
got to
dinner
have,
party. All right, we'll let you
yep,
have that one.
exactly. That's my style all the
Yeah.
way.
All right. So tell me a little bit about your childhood. Where'd you grow up? What are some of your favorite memories from your childhood? I know your grandfather, you said Pennsylvania, right? So
Yep.
what?
So I grew up. Yep. I grew up in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
and one of my seminal memories, and this is always the question you get it as an icebreaker at different events.
Yeah.
Actually, I got it last week when I was presenting at a conference
Yeah.
in Boston, and the question is always, what was your first job? And I love to tell this story. So when I was got out of seventh grade, we're small town, everybody walks
Mm-hmm.
to school.
Mm-hmm.
And the word, well, everybody's talking about what are you going to do for summer, and
Mm-hmm.
people were always trying to get work, and back then you couldn't work really legally until you were 16.
Yeah.
You had to have what they called working papers.
Okay.
But the word went out that if you wanted to work, you could get a job trimming Christmas trees for Walter Deal, who was
Okay.
an entrepreneur in town who really had a
Yeah.
store in sort of a big Quonset hut that that I like to call Walmart before Walmart was invented. It was like
Yeah.
hunting and fishing gear and work clothes
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But his side business was he owned all this land in rural northeastern Pennsylvania, and he created Christmas tree farms. And
Okay.
then he would harvest the trees and sell them and make a lot of
Yeah.
money selling them in Philadelphia and New York and Baltimore,
Okay.
around the holiday time. But he needed labor to trim the
Mm-hmm.
trees.
Mm-hmm.
So the word goes out if you show up on one of these,
Yeah.
designated 6 or 7 corners in town, you'll get hired. So we
Okay.
all I'll never forget this. I remember this like it was yesterday. A whole group of my friends and
Yeah.
I, we're all 13, and
Yeah.
it was cold early morning in June
Yeah.
in northeastern Pennsylvania. You could see your breath, and we're all trying to think of whether we've been scammed or not, right? Because we're waiting.
Mhm.
5 minutes
Mhm.
goes by, 10 minutes goes by, nobody shows up. Finally, this pickup truck pulls up, and this guy leans out and he says, "Hey, you boys want to work for Walter Deal?" We're like, "Yeah." They says, "Jump in the back of the truck." So we jump in the back of the truck, have no idea where we're going. We ride out through the
Yeah.
country and end up at this Christmas tree field and
Yeah.
who knows where. And we
Yeah.
get out, and all these trucks are converging with all these teenagers jumping out, and they give you shears and about 5 minutes of instructions, and away you go. And then at the end of
That's
the
crazy.
5 hour shift, we worked 5 hour shifts. At the end of the 5 hour shift, you would line up, and Walter Deal, who was a short, squat man, wore a pork pie hat and sort of like what you would
Yeah.
call like Dickies work clothes. He'd reach in his pocket and pull out the fattest wad of fives and tens and twenties you've ever seen. And he
And
would
then,
pay you based on how old you were, or how old he thought you were, and how hard he thought you would have worked. So I got $10. So it was $2 an hour, but that was a long
that's,
time ago,
yeah.
and that
Now,
was
did you go back like
money.
every day or was it sort of a
Yeah,
random
well, the
thing?
other beauty of this job, yeah, I would work, at that
Yeah.
age, I would work, 3 days a week probably,
Mm-hmm.
sleep in some days. So it wasn't like
Yeah.
it was hard work, very hard
Yeah.
work, but it put
Sure.
money in your pocket to go buy pizza, or buy
Yeah.
a submarine at the stores downtown, or go over.
Right.
We had a great amusement park called Knoebels Grove, which is famous. You could Google it. It's on the
Mm-hmm.
roller coaster, circuit. It's got, I
Mm-hmm.
think, 4 giant wooden roller coasters still in existence today. And it's a free amusement park. But, we needed money to go over
Yeah.
there
Of
and do that
course.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So it gave you spending money. And the
Yeah.
other funny thing about it is, if you think about the moment in time, it was the opposite of helicopter parents. My mom used to say, we'd say, "Hey, we're going to go work for Walter Deal. Okay, just be back for dinner."
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I
That
was
was
just
the
gonna say
extent
you
of
would
it.
never see like a group of kids jumping into the back of a pickup truck going somewhere where they have no idea where they're going, get paid with a wad of cash. Like that's just, I mean, like that doesn't happen today. But I love that that's how it happened then. I mean,
Yeah,
that was how
it's
I
a
remember, just having like access to jobs that were just so you just sort of followed along, right? It was just kind
yeah.
of like this trust of what you were doing. So
Yeah, I did that every summer for about 3 years. My brothers ended up
yeah,
joining me. At one point, my two brothers and I were all working together out
that's
there.
great.
And then we started
Yeah.
getting more
Yeah.
formal jobs where
Right.
you had to show
Where
up
you
every
can
day
actually
and you
get a
actually run a
paycheck and
payroll and you got a
yeah,
paycheck, right?
checking in and out. All
Yep.
right, Skip, what hobby do you wish you had more time for these days?
Skiing. I love to ski.
Oh,
Absolutely love to ski. I
yeah.
didn't get to go last winter because I was in the middle of this transition. We were opening the new University
Yeah.
Hospital at
Hmm.
the Ohio State Health System, and so I just didn't have time to do it.
Yeah.
But it's at the top of my to-do
Did you grow
list.
up a skier?
Because
Or like where did
yeah, we used to. There was a little ski area in the Poconos. So Bloomsburg
Okay.
was just west of the Poconos in northeastern
Mhm.
Pennsylvania, and so we used to go to Big Boulder and Jack Frost on the
Okay.
weekends, and we all
Yeah.
learned how to ski there. And then as I got older and started having children of my own, we used to
Yeah.
take family vacations, and they all learned how to either ski or snowboard.
And so what's the most ambitious place you've skied?
Oh boy, that's a great question. I've skied most of the front part of the Colorado Rockies.
Okay.
I've skied in Lake Tahoe. I've
Okay.
skied in Park City.
Okay.
I actually skied in Mount Hood, Oregon was the last time I went
Okay.
skiing two years ago with two good friends of mine. But it was actually my
Okay.
cousin and another friend from high school, and the three of us went out there and we had a blast because that's like you're
That's great.
skiing on a dormant volcano, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool, and
Yeah.
the views are epic. But I'd say the best place I ever skied that I would put at the top of the list is Vail in
Okay.
Colorado because they
Yeah,
have
I've
these
never done
giant back bowls that they're
Yeah.
never crowded, and it's like the most epic, sort of
Yeah.
views skiing you're
Yeah.
gonna do. Pretty
I
cool.
grew up in Nevada, so I grew up skiing Tahoe and the Sierras, and I will never forget one time we were skiing Heavenly, and we were at the top, and it was like a sign like go down this way, you're in Nevada, and don't go down this way, you're in California. And I don't know what we ended up doing, but we ended up getting lost, and I was with my sisters and their younger sisters, and so we were stuck somewhere in the back trail, and it was like hard to get down, and they didn't feel confident skiing, so like I had their skis under this arm and the other ones under this arm. And I like had to side slip down the rest of the mountain, to get to some sort of lodge to be able to
Yeah.
call wherever my parents were. But there, some of those, those resorts are pretty, I've never done Vail, but I can imagine that that's amazing.
So I've done Heavenly. I know right where you
Yeah.
were because I've skied
Yeah.
that exact trail, and
Yep.
there's a gorgeous, depending which way you go, you get
I
an
know.
absolutely
I
spectacular view
love
of
all
Lake
the back
Tahoe.
trails. That was always my
Yeah.
favorite. I love just kind of getting lost and all of that. So, all right. So last question, what's bringing you joy these days?
Oh,
2026. We're
that's a
halfway through the
great
year.
question. That is a great question. Well, I would say two things are bringing me joy. One is having fun, meeting with people like you, having more time
Yeah.
to really to build the consultancy, to get back
Mhm.
to doing, my own writing and reporting. So I've started. I built in my first month after leaving Ohio State. I say I retired from Ohio State, but I didn't retire. I
Yeah.
purposely wanted to move back to the Chicago area because this is where
Okay.
the youngest of our five children are, and our only
Mhm.
daughter, and she has two of our 10 grandchildren here, and we wanted to be
Mhm.
part of their lives, and so we
Mhm.
made that move. So that brings me a lot of joy because we're 10
Yeah.
minutes from her when we get to see them visit. But I have
Yeah.
had a lot of joy starting to write again and doing my own original,
Yeah.
my original storytelling. So the
Yeah.
website is wclair.com, and there's a
Yep.
story power section of it. So if
Yeah.
your listeners want to
Yeah.
check that out, I try to add to it every week. I'm working on a story, actually, a surprise, surprise, based on our discussion about Blues Festival,
Music. Yep.
really about the branding, the unique branding collaboration between Chicago and Mississippi, because I just find it
Yeah.
to be pretty
Yeah. Well,
cool.
send me when that
Yeah,
gets published, send that to me and we'll
I
somehow
will.
link to it too in
Yeah.
this, after.
So those are giving me joy, being
Yeah.
able to spend time with, with my granddaughters regularly, see my daughter regularly, and then
Yeah.
have time to do my own work and really help other brands get better. That's really what I'm
Yeah.
focused on.
Being an entrepreneur and being a
Yeah.
grandfather and all those good things. That's great. Well, it's really been fun to catch up with you and get to know you better. And I appreciate you sharing some time with me. And I hope to see you soon. I keep thinking you're still in Columbus, and I keep forgetting that you're on Central's time.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry about
but
that.
I'm sure and confident that we'll catch up soon. So I appreciate your time.
Well, Kirsten, thank you for inviting me. It's been a
Yeah, my
delightful
pleasure.
conversation, and I appreciate everything you do and appreciate WG
Oh,
content.
thanks.
So thank
Thanks,
you
Skip.
very much.
All right. See
Take
ya.
care. Have a
Bye.
nice day. Bye bye.